Hi guys, this is Mr. Saxon and I'm here to do Hunter x Hunter chapter 347 review. Now this chapter is pretty simple. It's basically made out of three parts. First part being the attack on Pariston and Jean. The second part being the introduction of the soldiers, the backup soldiers from the army that is going to the Dark Continent, and the third part will be the donations that Jing will be giving to the soldiers, the money, and I will be talking about that third part more into detail. Now, this is going to be a short video because there isn't much information revealed into this chapter, so I'm going to go right ahead and start with the first part. Basically, in the last chapter, we were left with the soldier guys that were led by Mueller. They wanted to attack Jing and Pariston. And Jing wanted to beat them up and Pariston wanted to kill them. Well, those were the third and the fourth option, and these guys come up with a fifth option, which is to kill both Pariston and Jing. And of course they start shooting at them, and Pariston and Jing start running, dodging the bullets, and Mueller tries to pin them down in the basement. And basically they get to the basement and Jing tries to attack them. I mean, he doesn't try, he actually attacks them. Pariston asks him if it's okay with him to use his powers, because that's what Pariston wanted the entire time, to see Jing's capabilities. And Jing says it's okay, but he doesn't actually use his powers. Phone call. Okay. Where was I? Yeah, so basically Jing doesn't use his own power. He uses power that he learned from Leorio. Remember in the election arc when Leorio hit Jing from far away, he did something like teleported his punch, or at least that's what we assume. But we see now that that's not exactly what happens. You actually move the area of effect, like Jing punches the ground, and then we see these little nen lines going to the soldiers. So instead of the earth taking the actual damage, the area where Jing punched the ground, the Nen ability moves the damage from that area to the soldiers. And pretty convenient ability. It's a long range ability, and it can surprise the enemy. And I was actually surprised that Jing was able to learn that only by seeing it once. And he actually says that it's a born quality. He was born with it. Again, and he actually developed it probably even more than Leorio. I would not say even more than Leorio, because we didn't see Leorio use this ability, and we don't know what he can do with it. But it's basically the way Jing puts it. Leorio is a doctor, and he wanted to identify tumors and stuff that is wrong with the human body without actually cutting and operating the human body. So he used sort of like a radar technique, a pulping technique, and this ability to move the area of impact was a consequence of this pulping technique. And Jing actually says that this technique can be used to locate tumors in the human body, but it can also be used to locate entire human bodies in an area. It's sort of like a radar ability, and it's much stealthier than N, because when you use N, and we all know that from the king. The king could use N kilometers of N, but the moment the king used N, all of his enemies sensed it, and they could prepare. Theoretically, they could prepare because the king was so fast that they couldn't actually do anything. But in another situation, when somebody uses N, they can detect you, but you can detect them as well. And this pulping technique is much stealthier. And we see him using it to detect two other soldiers that were hiding behind the open wall, and he also targets them with the same technique and kills them. I'm not sure if he kills them, but they were both taken out. And then he used the technique again on the ground to see if there are any more troops coming, and they weren't. And so that's the end of the battle. And Jing took them out pretty easily. And of course, Palestine was playing his role, like why would they back up and stuff like that, but Jing already saw through his facade. So Jing already knew that this entire chain of events was orchestrated by Palestine. And the purpose of this was only to see Jing's power. So they go back and they talk to Mueller. They tell him that these soldiers are not even good for the backups. So they don't have anything to do with that continent. But Mueller says, well, they're not going to be working alone. They're going to be working with a emitter type. The emitter creates the robot, and you see a big robot like robot, and these guys are only going to create the bullets. They are going to be working as a joint type. And this is the first time, I think it's the first time we see a joint type where two emitters or a conjurer, I should say a conjurer and an emitter, come together and form a single mechanism. And we see this robot has a chair on his shoulder where the guy that creates the bullets is supposed to sit, and the guy that creates the machine is inside the machine. And Mueller actually says, I've been working with this guy for a couple of years and I don't even know his name because he never comes out of the machine. And Jing was pretty impressed about that because he could keep up his Nen all the time, and the machine never goes down. So that's basically that part, and that's going to be the artillery in the Dark Continent. And I will be talking more about that as it develops, because it's very interesting how certain classes of men can combine together to create more powerful classes. And that could also be something that is happening with some of the weapons, ancient weapons in the Dark Continent. But I'm going to be having a discussion about that at a later time. And then there's the last part. Well, Mueller tells Jing that the soldiers, most of the soldiers that are fighting to go to the Dark Continent, are driven by honor. And when he brought up the thing about the cash, the money, they were offended because they are doing this out of honor, out of curiosity for the Dark Continent, not for money. And when he tried to buy them, basically they felt cheap, and most of them wanted to leave. And Jing didn't actually, he said that he didn't actually fought this thing through, it just came to him in the heat of the argument, and he doesn't want the troops to feel like he's above them somehow because of the money. And if they won't take the money, then he will donate that money to this foundation called the Noel Foundation, which is basically founded by an old soldier that wanted to raise funds for the families of ex-soldiers, veterans, and it's a well-known organization that helps veterans. He helps families of deceased soldiers, or I should say fallen in battle, and that seems to be okay. And that seems to be okay with Mueller. So basically now he's number 2, but even though he's accepted as number 2, but even though he is number 2, he's still a soldier, and Mueller is the general of the soldier army, so everything that Mueller says goes, and we see Jing having no problem with that. And we also see Pariston. Pariston hasn't got any problem with Jing being number 2, but that position of his comes only out of curiosity, because he's curious to see how Jing will actually do in the Dark Continent if he is up to the task, and if he comes close to his level of thinking, because we all know that probably the most powerful trait of Pariston is his mind. He likes to toy with people and manipulate them, and he wants to see if Jing is up to that level. So that's basically the chapter. As I said before, not very much details about the Dark Continent and about not any action. They don't have much action, just a little bit of fighting at the beginning. So yeah, the only thing that was interesting about this chapter was seeing how Jing can copy other people's powers as long as they are hitting powers. Like he cannot copy an emitter type power, for example, but as long as it's a hitting power where he gets hit by it, I cannot say a melee attack because the earlier attack was not melee, but it's still a hitting technique, and he can copy that. So that was interesting. And again, the joint type, the emitter and the conjurer, were very impressive. So I'll stop right here. Maybe I'll do a discussion this weekend, but until that time, please rate, comment, subscribe, and have a nice day.
Any rational society would either kill me or put me to some use.